Hi, welcome back to Strategic Planet. Today I want to give you an insight on how you can create a group in a box layout for NodeXL, which looks something like this. Also, we'll be reviewing how you can identify influences related to a key topic that you might be reviewing. And supporting the process, I'll be demonstrating how you can identify subgraphs within NodeXL. So let's start. Just as a reminder, to find NodeXL, all you have to do is go to the bottom left-hand corner on your Windows platform and look for NodeXL. Now, just remember that just because it's Excel, you can't click on the Excel file. You need to go to NodeXL under N to upload that particular plugin for Excel. This is what the output would look like when it first appears. So you'll see the pop-up. You can shut it easily by just clicking on the X at the top. And then the document action pop-up will appear, and that's essentially where the graph will go. You can also look for it by typing in NodeXL and look for the NodeXL template rather than anything else that you've developed before. So what you can see here is you've got the Edges tab, which will be blank. The Vertices tab, or the Nodes tab, which again is blank. Then the groups, group vertices, and the overall matrix. So this will all be blank to start off with. On the right hand side you can see the document actions, and I'm just going to reduce the size of the vertices and the edges because theoretically speaking I cannot show you the names of the participants that I'm going to download because with GDPR, or the Data Protection Act 2018, I should have their details before exposing them on the internet, so hence the output there will be a little bit blurred. So we can see the ribbon at the top here, and you'll notice that the NodeXL plugin has an additional element. So the ribbon shows the area where the data can be imported or exported, the aspects of the graph, visual properties, the analysis element, the options, show and hide, and the help. Now, I'm only really going to focus in on the import and the export, or no, the import really. Bits about the graph, bits about the visual properties, and bits about the analysis. I will produce a few other videos later on to go into other elements of NodeXL in a bit more detail. But this, as I mentioned earlier, is just to focus on the creating of graph in a box type output and being able to identify influences for a particular brand or keyword or subject in question. So here we've got the import option. There are lots of options for the importing if you've got the pro version, but with the free version you can only do the Twitter search network. So you'll see the first search bar, if you like, where you can type in your keyword. Limit it to the basic option and reduce it down to 2000, and let's just take off the expand URLs in tweets because that's a bit slower. So you'll be asked here when you first embark on the process to include your Twitter ID. So essentially you're getting your Twitter account to link into NodeXL. I've already done this, so I have an account and I've authorized NodeXL to use my account to import Twitter networks. You will have to click on that, and what you'll see is this type of output. It will take you to the internet and then you will log into your Twitter account so that you can authorize NodeXL to use it, and then it will send you a passcode to fill in, and it will look a little bit like this. I've already done this, but so the slides you're looking at now are copies that I made earlier from a previous example. So once you've done that, you can click on the OK button, or actually it will run. But just to put this into context, with some tweets, or the search term is quite widely used, it's run all night. So if let's say you're in a university or in a public area, you are going to have to bear in mind that you probably aren't going to be able to sit there all night for the data to run. This is really because with the free API that NodeXL uses, it's limited in how many times it can access the data from Twitter. So it puts a restriction, and you are having to go back, or the API mechanism is having to go back and draw down information at specific points in time. That's why it can take all night to run. But for this particular exercise, because we've gone for the basic network and we've limited it to 2000, it should be much quicker. So once the information has been downloaded, you'll see this pop-up appear, which essentially is asking you to agree to speed up the import by turning off the text wrapping option. So here we have the output. So as I mentioned, I blurred out the actual names because our restrictions and ethical requirements mean that I can't really show you the names of the individuals because I haven't got consent for them to do that. But I'm not going to go through in detail what each column means. I'll let you investigate that. What I want to do is first of all show you the graph. You can generate the graph by clicking on show graph, and then the graph will appear in the document actions pop-up window, and it looks like this, which for all intents and purposes is meaningless. It's just a lot of dots, a lot of networks. The options are as follows, so you can see what you can do. So I usually use the Harold Corran fast multi-scale option, which looks like this. Now you're probably saying that doesn't make much sense either, but it's from my personal opinion is a little bit better than the standard output. Now, if you are working on a laptop and you've got restricted space, you can actually close the graph by just clicking on the X at the top right hand corner, and you can bring it back by clicking on the refresh graph at the top, and I'll come back to that in a second. So one of the first things that I would encourage you to do is just go across to the right hand side and select the language that you want to focus on, because you'll have a whole range of different languages in there, and if you're going to focus on analyzing the data, really you want to be using a language that you are familiar with. So I filtered it out or with English, so this is what I've done here. And now what you can see is also the overall matrix is showing some output but no real data. There's nothing in the graph vertices or the groups, but you've got data in the vertices, which has things like the followers, followed, tweets, favorites, etc. And the I suppose the core piece of information, which is the message that has been sent out. What we want to do now is create the graph metric. So if you click on this link here, you'll see this option appear. What you've got to do is click all so that everything can be highlighted. Now, if you've got the pro version, you can select the items that you want, but in the free version, you're going to have to click all to get all the data, which is no bad thing really, because when you're not used to it, you'll really need to understand what's being what's available to be used. So click all. It takes a little while to generate the information, but what you can see that once it's done, you'll be sent to the overall metrics, and you can see that now you've got some output data. I don't tend to use this. Well, let's look at a quick overview. There is a summary there, which is useful. Then we've got the Twitter search network top items. So this is very useful, and you can pick out things like the sentiment analysis, the top words that are being used, the top influencers. Quite a lot of information that is potentially useful. You'll notice that the group vertices and the groups still empty, but one of the key things is that the statistics have now been completed for the vertices tab. Because we are using a directed graph, what I want you to do is sort it highest to lowest for the page rank. Now, and this will help identify potential influences for that particular term. And to demonstrate the importance, we're going to do a subgraph. So we'll click on the subgraph link here. Let's leave it at 1.5 and then create. That'll take a little way to run. And you can see what happens is that NodeXL has generated a number of subgraphs for each node or vertices in the network, demonstrating the links that particular node or vertices has, and it complements the page rank value that we've sorted, showing that the densest networks are those with the highest page rank. And these are the individuals that are likely to be the biggest influencers within your network. So essentially, when you're doing this task, sort it by page rank, and then you can identify those influencers that could potentially benefit the brand, the service, or the product that you're looking to manage. You can supplement the analysis of the data with the number of followers that particular node or vertices has, but just moving across to the right hand side of that tab in question, and you can see how many followers and how many tweets that individual or that handle has. Now what we want to do is create groups or clusters. For the purpose of this exercise, we're just going to group by cluster. I will, again, at a later stage, go through this in a bit more detail, talking about the difference between group by connected components, cluster, and motive. But for this particular exercise, we'll just group by cluster. So we click on the group by cluster, and we'll just use the default outputs that the program has set. And again, it takes a little while to appear. And now if we have a look in the groups and the group vertices, you can see it's been filled in. So I've got various groups in the list, and the group vertices set up accordingly. And if we have a look at our graph, and if I refresh it, you can see that the groups that we've created are all color coded. But again, that's still not particularly helpful. So what we want to do is create the or the graph in a box options. But before we do that, let's just have a look at the data. So you can see in the groups there's a limited amount of data available, but we want to fill in the rest of these columns, and to do that we need to run the graph metrics again. So do as we did earlier on, click on graph metrics, select all, which has already been there, and then calculate metrics. So once that's done, it throws you to the overall metrics tab again. Let's go back and have a look at the group data. Here you can now see that it's filled in all the information. Let's now run the graph, but this time we are going to create a graph in a box. So to do that, we go to the graph options, click on the drop down menu and go right to the bottom where it says layout options, and you'll see layout each of the graphs groups in its own box. Keep it as the standard default and then click OK. And then refresh graph. And then this is what you get. So in my opinion, this is so much better than the other graphs, and this is one of the great things about NodeXL, is its ability to produce graph in a box, the graph in a box option. So you can see here each group, each community, and you can identify the conversations that are taking place in those communities. So the ones on the left are the ones with the most conversations that are taking place, the most links. But we want to actually get the data. So we go to the visual properties options just by the ribbon here, and then click on autofill column. What you'll see is another pop-up appear, which has got the edges, the vertices and the groups. Let's stick to the groups. We want to now give these groups a label, and you can put in whatever label you want. So let's just choose, or the two which I recommend at the moment is either the top hashtags or the top tweets. So we will click that, but we want to prepend that. So we click on the options to the left of it and group label options and prepend it with the group name. So click on that, OK, and then run it or autofill. And what we'll now see is the graph in a box appear with the data that we are focusing on. So in this case, G1, you can see group 1. There's no hashtag within there, but G2, it shows the key hashtags that have been used, and you can use this as a summary, and you'll pick this up in the Twitter search network top items. So when you're doing your report, you can use that tab there to identify these key elements, or within the group tab as well. So we've got that information, but you can see that there's nothing in G1. Let's see what happens if I change the autofill column to words. So if we now use our autofill to change the labels, so we'll change it from top hashtag to top words in the tweet. This is the output that you get. So using these basic steps, you can identify the influencer. So you're focusing on the page rank, which you've sorted highest to lowest. You can get the subgraph just to check the data, and then when you do the graph in a box option, you can play around with whether you want to focus on the top words or the top hashtags or the top URLs. I suppose it depends on what you're doing, what your objectives are, or your research are. For the assignment that the students, or my students, are focusing on, what you need to do is either focus on the keywords or the hashtags. And then you can put the copy, take a screen grab off the graph that you've got and put it in the final report. I hope you found that useful. If you've got any questions, just drop me a line, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. And don't forget, if you have liked it, then hit like or subscribe. Thanks again. I will speak to you soon.